Commander Yoon stood in the observation deck of the orbital station, watching the planet below through the reinforced glass. Velcor Prime had been a beautiful world once. Green forests, blue oceans, and rich mineral deposits that 3 different governments wanted to control. Now it was a battlefield covered in smoke and fire. He touched the screen in front of him, pulling up the latest casualty reports. The numbers made his stomach turn. 17 battalions destroyed. 3 orbital platforms torn apart. An entire armored division gone in less than 2 days. All because of one creature. Sir, the Kovacs Collective is requesting another emergency channel, his communications officer said from behind him. Yoon nodded without turning around. He knew what they wanted. The same thing everyone wanted now. A way to stop the beast that was killing them all. The creature had come from deep beneath the surface. Some said the war had awakened it. The massive bombs and seismic weapons had shaken the planet's crust for months. Something down there had noticed. Something old and angry had decided to come up. The first soldiers who saw it thought their sensors were broken. Nothing alive could be that large? 400 meters from head to tail. 6 legs, each one thick as a building, ending in claws that could slice through reinforced steel like paper. Its body was covered in black scales that seemed to drink in light. Energy weapons bounced off. Kinetic rounds just made it angrier. Yoon had watched the video feeds. He had seen the creature move. Despite its size, it was fast. Terrifyingly fast. It would appear from underground tunnels, destroy everything in its path, and disappear again before heavy weapons could target it properly. Tanks vanished into its mouth. Soldiers ran, but running didn't help. Nothing helped. "Connect me to the Kovacs channel," Yoon said quietly. The screen flickered. A Kovacs commander appeared. Her blue skin looked pale, and her usually proud bearing was gone. She looked tired. Scared, even. "Commander Yoon," she said. "We need to talk about a ceasefire." Those words would have been unthinkable a week ago. The Drathan Empire and the Kovacs Collective had been enemies for 3 generations. But fear had a way of making enemies into allies. "I'm listening," Yoon replied. "The beast killed 2,000 of my soldiers yesterday. It destroyed our main supply depot. We can't fight you and fight it at the same time." She paused. "I don't think any of us can." Yoon had already been thinking the same thing. The independent colony forces had reached out to him hours ago with a similar message. Everyone was losing. Everyone was dying. The planet they were fighting over would be worthless if they were all dead. "What do you propose?" he asked. "One combined assault. All 3 factions. Every resource we have left? We hit it with everything at once? If that doesn't work..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. If that didn't work, they would abandon the planet. Probably destroy it from orbit. Better to lose Velcor Prime than let that thing spread to other worlds. "I'll need to clear it with my superiors," Yoon said. "But yes, I think it's our only option." They talked for another 20 minutes, planning the assault. It would take 3 days to organize. 3 days of watching more soldiers die while they prepared. But it was necessary. This had to work. After the call ended, Yoon sat in his chair and closed his eyes. He was 53 years old. He had fought in 7 wars. He had seen death in many forms. But this was different. This wasn't war. This was extermination. The creature didn't care about territory or resources. It just killed and ate and killed again. "Sir," his communications officer interrupted his thoughts. "We have a civilian vessel requesting permission to land. They're reporting engine failure and need repairs." Yoon looked at her in disbelief. "A civilian vessel? Here? Now?" "Yes, sir. It's called the Dandelion. Small transport ship. They say they didn't know about the situation until they were already in system. Their faster-than-light drive is damaged." Yoon wanted to say no. Wanted to tell them to limp to the next system and leave them all alone. But he couldn't. Regulations were clear. Aid to vessels in distress was mandatory even in a war zone. Fine, but they stay in orbit. No one goes planetside except military personnel. Is that clear? Yes, sir. The dandelion docked an hour later. It was old, patched in a dozen places, the kind of ship that moved cargo between frontier colonies. Yoon didn't pay much attention to it. He had bigger problems. 2 days passed. The combined assault force gathered. 15,000 troops, heavy mechs that stood 30 meters tall, aerial fighters, orbital bombardment ships, every weapon they could bring to bear. Yoon had never seen this much firepower assembled in one place. The planning sessions were tense. 3 different military forces trying to coordinate. Different languages, different tactics, different command structures. But fear motivated them. Fear of the creature that had eaten their armies. They named the operation Hellbreaker. Yoon thought that was appropriate. They were either going to break this hell they were living in, or they were going to die trying, on the morning of the assault. Yoon stood in the command center watching multiple screens at once. Each one showed a different section of the operation. The creature had been spotted in the northern continent, in a valley surrounded by mountains. Perfect place for an ambush. Their ambush this time, not the creatures. All units report ready, his tactical officer announced. Yoon took a breath. Begin the operation. The screens lit up with weapons fire. Missiles streaked down from orbit. Artillery hammered the valley. Heavy mechs advanced in formation, their cannons firing constantly. Aerial fighters dropped bombs that could level city blocks. For 10 minutes, Yoon allowed himself to hope. The valley was covered in explosions. Nothing could survive that. Nothing. Then the smoke cleared slightly. The creature stood in the center of the valley, roaring. Its scales were scorched in places, but it was very much alive. And now it was moving. All units target the creature. Yoon shouted into his communicator. Don't let it reach the ground forces. But it was already too late. The creature charged with impossible speed. It crashed into the advancing mechs like a wave hitting a sandcastle. Metal screamed. Explosions bloomed. Soldiers scattered. But there was nowhere to run. Yoon watched in horror as the carefully planned assault fell apart in minutes. The creature was smart. It used the terrain, staying in places where orbital bombardment might hit their own forces. It targeted command vehicles first, disrupting coordination. It was hunting them. Sir, the canyon walls are collapsing. Someone shouted. On the screens, Yoon saw mountains of rock sliding down. The creature had led them into a trap. It had known they were coming and had prepared. The falling rock cut off retreat routes, separated units from each other, turned an organized assault into chaos. The casualty reports started coming in. Hundreds dead, thousands. Yoon felt each number like a physical blow. Order full retreat, he said, his voice hollow. Everyone who can get out now? The retreat was a massacre. The creature pursued, picking off the slowest units. By the time the survivors reached the evacuation points, 70% of the assault force was gone. Yoon sat in his chair, staring at the final casualty count. They had failed. Completely, utterly failed. The most powerful military force ever assembled on this planet, and they had barely scratched it. Prepare evacuation protocols for all remaining personnel, he said quietly. We're abandoning Valkyr Prime. His staff moved to obey, their faces showing the same defeat Yoon felt. They had lost. The beast had won. And soon they would burn the entire planet from orbit rather than let that thing escape into the galaxy. In the docking bay, aboard the Dandelion, Dr. Hyeon watched the news feeds showing the failed assault. She studied the footage of the creature carefully, her trained eyes seeing things others missed. The way it moved. The sounds it made. The patterns in its behavior. I need to speak to someone in charge, she said to Captain Daeyeon. Right now. Dr. Hyeon stood in the command center, surrounded by military officers who looked at her like she had lost her mind. Maybe she had. What she was proposing sounded insane even to her own ears. Let me understand this correctly, Commander Yoon said slowly. You want to approach the creature? The same creature that just killed 10,000 soldiers. You want to walk up to it? Yes, Hyeon replied simply. Why would you possibly want to do that? Hyen gestured to the screen showing footage of the battle. Because I've been watching it. Really watching it. And I think everyone is wrong about what it is. One of the Kovacs officers made a sharp sound that might have been a laugh. We know what it is. It's a killing machine. We watched it eat our people. It's a living creature, Hyen corrected. And living creatures don't behave randomly. They have reasons for what they do. Patterns. This creature has patterns. She pulled up a section of video on her portable screen and played it for them. It showed the creature attacking a military base, but Hyen pointed out details they had missed. How the creature avoided certain areas. How it focused on loud, aggressive targets first. How it retreated when confronted with certain frequencies of sound. This isn't mindless aggression, she explained. This is defensive behavior. Territorial behavior. Something threatened it, and it's responding to that threat. Yoon studied her carefully. She was young, maybe 30 years old. Short dark hair, practical clothing, the kind of person who spent time in the field rather than in laboratories. Her eyes were calm despite the situation. That calmness bothered him more than panic would have. You're a xenobiologist, he said, reading from her credentials on his screen. You study alien life, but you're not military. You don't understand what we're dealing with. I grew up on Sebum Colony, Hyen said. Frontier world. Agricultural settlement. We raised livestock that your military would classify as extreme hazard level. 6-ton grazing animals with horns that could impale a person. Predators that could smell fear from a kilometer away. I started working with them when I was 8 years old. She met Yoon's eyes steadily. I understand dangerous animals better than most soldiers understand war. And that creature down there is an animal. A very large, very dangerous animal. But still an animal. Captain Dae-yun, who had been standing quietly near the door, stepped forward. I've known Dr. Hyen for 3 years. She's worked on 6 different worlds handling creatures that everyone else said were impossible to approach. She's still alive. They're still alive. That's not luck. It's suicide, the Kovacs officer said flatly. We're preparing orbital bombardment. In 48 hours, this entire planet will be sterilized. Nothing will survive. Including that thing. Hyen felt her chest tighten. You're going to destroy an entire planet? An entire ecosystem? Because one creature is defending itself? That one creature has killed thousands of people, Yoon said quietly. Yes, we're going to destroy it. And everything else on this planet if necessary. The Galactic Council has already approved the action. Give me 24 hours, Hyen said. That's all I'm asking. 24 hours to study it. To try to understand it. If I'm wrong, you lose nothing. The bombardment happens anyway. But if I'm right, if you're right, what? Yoon asked. What exactly do you think you can do? I can communicate with it. Or at least try. I can find out what it wants. Why it's behaving this way. Maybe there's a way to resolve this without killing it. The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Yoon sighed. I can't authorize this. My superiors would never allow it. The answer is no. Hyen nodded slowly. She had expected that answer. Then I'm not asking for authorization. I'm informing you of what I'm going to do. Captain Dae-yun has agreed to take me planetside. We'll go in a small shuttle, unarmed, minimal systems. We won't interfere with your evacuation or your bombardment schedule. But we're going. I'll have you arrested, Yoon said, but there was no force in his voice. You don't have the security personnel to spare? Hyen pointed out. Everyone is busy evacuating. By the time you organize someone to stop us, we'll already be gone. Dae-yun cleared his throat. Our ship needs repairs anyway. Might take us near the planet to check some external sensors. Accidents happen. Yoon looked between them, seeing the determination in their faces. He was too tired to argue anymore. Too tired to care, really. What did it matter? They would die on the planet or die in the bombardment. Everyone was dying around this creature. If you're not back in 24 hours, we're not waiting, he said finally. The bombardment happens on schedule. Understood? Understood, Hyan said. 2 hours later, Hyan and Daeyeon sat in a small shuttle, descending through Velker Prime's atmosphere. The planet looked wounded from above. Fires burned across continents. Smoke rose in massive pillars. The scars of war covered everything. You know this is crazy, Daeyeon said as he piloted. Completely crazy, I know. That thing has killed thousands of trained soldiers. We're 2 people in a shuttle that's barely armed with anything. I know that too. Daeyeon glanced at her. So why are we doing this? Hin was quiet for a moment, watching the planet grow larger below them. When I was 12, a bullgrazer went mad on our colony. Something was wrong in its brain. Chemical imbalance, we found out later. It killed 3 people before anyone knew what was happening. The colonial guard wanted to shoot it. Kill it before it hurt anyone else. What happened? My mother went out there. She was our head animal handler. She walked right up to that bull while it was charging her. She stood there and talked to it. Calm voice. Steady hands. And it stopped. Just stopped 10 meters from her. She figured out it was in pain. The chemical imbalance was causing terrible headaches. She treated it, and it was fine afterward. Gentle as anything. That's a nice story, Daeyeon said. But that was a domestic animal. This thing is wild. The principle is the same. Animals aren't evil. They're not trying to be cruel. They're responding to their situation. Fear, pain, hunger, territorial instinct. If you can understand what's driving them, you can predict them. Maybe even help them. The shuttle shook as they entered the lower atmosphere. Daeyeon adjusted their course, heading for the creature's last known location. The northern continent looked like the surface of a dead world. Craters everywhere. Twisted metal. The remains of tanks and mechs scattered like broken toys. There, Hyan said, pointing to a massive cave entrance. That's where it retreated after the battle. Take us down near there. Near the cave where the giant monster lives. Sure, why not? They landed 1/2 kilometer from the cave entrance. The ground was scorched and broken. Hyan could see bodies in the distance, soldiers who hadn't made it out. She tried not to think about them. Tried not to think about how many people had died here. I'm going in, she said, gathering her equipment. Medical scanner? Basic supplies? No weapons. I'm coming with you, Daeyeon said. No, you stay with the shuttle. Keep the engines warm. If this goes wrong, I want you to be able to leave fast. Haha, please. She looked at him seriously. I need to do this alone. Animals can sense fear, and they can sense aggression. 2 people is more threatening than 1. Let me try it my way. Daeyeon wanted to argue, but something in her expression stopped him. This was what she did. This was who she was? 24 hours, he said. That's all we have, I know. Hyan stepped out of the shuttle and began walking toward the cave. The ground crunched under her boots. The air smelled like burning metal and something else. Something organic and old. Her heart was pounding, but she kept her breathing steady. Fear was natural. Fear kept you alert. But panic would get you killed. The cave entrance was enormous. She could have driven the shuttle through it with room to spare. Darkness waited inside, deep and absolute. Hyan pulled out a small light and clicked it on. The beam seemed tiny against that darkness. She heard it before she saw it. A sound like mountains breathing. Deep, rhythmic, powerful. The creature was in there. Resting, maybe? Wounded, definitely. She had seen the footage. Even its tough scales couldn't deflect everything. It had taken damage. Hyan moved slowly into the cave, her light sweeping back and forth. The tunnel went deep into the planet. She followed the sound of breathing, followed the smell, followed her instincts. Then she saw it. The creature lay in a massive chamber, its body coiled around itself. Even resting, it was terrifying. Each scale was the size of her hand. Its claws dug into the stone floor. Blood leaked from dozens of wounds along its body, black and thick. The creature's eye opened. Just one eye, huge and golden, fixing on the small human standing in its cave. Hyen felt that gaze like physical pressure. Every instinct screamed at her to run. She stayed still. The creature's head lifted slightly, and a sound came from deep in its chest. A warning growl that shook the cave walls. Hyen's light fell on something she hadn't noticed before. The creature's abdomen was swollen, distended. Her medical scanner picked up multiple life signs coming from that area. "Oh," Hyen whispered. "Oh, you're pregnant." Everything suddenly made sense. The territorial behavior. The fierce defense. The retreat to this cave. This wasn't just an animal defending its territory. This was a mother protecting her unborn children. The creature's growl deepened, resonating through the cave like an earthquake finding its voice. Hyen felt it in her bones, in her chest, in the back of her teeth. Every part of her body was telling her to run. To get out while she still could, she took another step forward instead. "Easy, girl," she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know you're scared. I know you're hurt. But I'm not here to fight you." The creature's head lowered slightly, bringing that massive eye closer to her level. Hyen could see intelligence in that eye. Not human intelligence, but something deep and aware. This was not a mindless beast. This was a thinking being making decisions about whether this tiny creature in its cave was dangerous. Hyen's scanner was still running, collecting data. The creature's heart rate was elevated. Multiple wounds showing signs of infection. Stress hormones at dangerous levels. And those life signs in her abdomen, clear as anything. 3 separate signatures. 3 babies. "You were just protecting them," Hyen said softly. "All those soldiers, all those weapons. You thought they were coming for your babies?" The creature made a different sound now. Not a growl, but something else. A low, rumbling vocalization that seemed almost questioning. Hyen felt a spark of hope. Communication. The first step of communication. Was listening. She slowly pulled out her medical supplies. The creature's eye tracked every movement. Hyen showed each item, moving deliberately so nothing seemed threatening. Antiseptic, bandages, pain medication. Synthesized for large alien biology. She had brought it hoping, praying she would get this far. "I'm going to help you," Hyen said. "If you'll let me." The creature watched her for a long moment. Then, impossibly, it lowered its head completely to the ground. Not aggressive. Not retreating. Submissive? No, not quite. It was a gesture of permission? Trust? Hyen's hands were shaking as she approached one of the wounds on the creature's flank. It was a deep burn from an energy weapon, already showing signs of infection. She sprayed antiseptic on it. The creature flinched but didn't move away. "Good girl," Hyen said. "That's a good girl." She worked for 2 hours on the nearest wounds she could reach. The creature remained still, occasionally making those low rumbling sounds. Hyen started to recognize patterns in them. Different tones for different things, discomfort, acknowledgement, something that might have been gratitude. Outside the cave, Dae-yeon paced near the shuttle. Every instinct told him to go in after Hyen, but he trusted her. She knew what she was doing. She had to know what she was doing, because if she didn't, she was already dead. His communicator buzzed. Commander Yoon's voice came through, tense and worried. "Captain Dae-yeon, what's your status?" "Dr. Hyen is inside the cave with the creature," Dae-yeon replied. "Is she alive?" "So far, yes. She's been in there for over 2 hours." Silence on the other end. "Then this is insane." "Yes, sir. But it's working. So far, it's working." Inside the cave, Haeyeon had moved to examine the creature's head more closely. This was dangerous. The mouth was right there, large enough to swallow her whole, but she needed to check for injuries around the sensory organs. "I'm going to touch your face now," she said, keeping her voice calm and steady. "I just need to make sure nothing is damaged there." She reached up slowly. Her hand looked impossibly small against those massive scales. She touched the creature's snout, feeling the heat radiating from its body. The creature's eye closed for a moment, and she felt a rumble of what might have been contentment. Haeyeon felt tears prick her eyes. This magnificent being, so powerful and so feared, was allowing her to help. was trusting her. She found more wounds. Scratches around the eyes from shrapnel. Burns along the throat. She treated each one carefully, explaining what she was doing in a constant stream of soft words. The words probably didn't matter. The tone did. Hours passed. Han lost track of time, focused completely on her work. She cleaned wounds, applied medication, checked vital signs. The creature's stress levels were dropping. Heart rate normalizing. It was relaxing. At one point, Hyun sat down to rest, leaning against the cave wall. She was exhausted. Her arms ached from reaching up to tend the creature's wounds. She closed her eyes for just a moment. She woke to something warm and heavy resting against her side. The creature had moved closer, its massive head lying on the ground near her, protective, trusting. "Oh," Hyun whispered, reaching out to touch the scales near the creature's eye. "We're going to be friends, aren't we?" The creature made that rumbling sound again. Hen was certain now. It was pleased. Maybe even happy. She stood up, stretching her sore muscles. "I need to check on your babies. Make sure they're okay? Is that all right?" The creature watched her move to its abdomen. Hyun placed her scanner against the swollen area, reading the data that appeared. 3 strong heartbeats. Good development. They were maybe 2 weeks from being born, if she was reading the biology correctly. "They're healthy," she told the creature. "Your babies are going to be fine." The creature's whole body seemed to relax at that. A sound came from deep in its chest, different from anything Hyun had heard before. It was a purr, she realized. A sound of deep contentment. Hyun's communicator buzzed. She answered it reluctantly. "Yes?" "Hyun, it's been 12 hours, Daeyeon said. "You need to come out, rest, eat something." "I can't leave her yet." "Hyun, she's pregnant, Daeyeon. She's alone, injured, and pregnant. She thinks we're all trying to kill her babies. I can't just leave." Silence. "Then I'm bringing food and supplies to the cave entrance. Please at least come get them." Hyun looked at the creature. "I'll be right back," she said. "I promise. I'm not leaving you." She walked out of the cave, blinking in the daylight. Had it really been 12 hours? It felt like minutes and hours at the same time. Daeyeon stood at the entrance holding supplies, his face showing relief and worry. "Is it really pregnant?" he asked. "Yes, 3 babies. That's why she was so aggressive. The war started right over her nesting area. All the bombs, all the seismic weapons. She thought they were attacking her babies." Hyun took the food, eating without really tasting it. "We did this, Daeyeon. We started a war on her home, and she was just defending her children. What do we do now?" "I don't know yet. But we can't let them kill her. We can't." Daeyeon looked uncomfortable. "Commander Yoon called again?" "The bombardment is still scheduled." "They're not going to change that. Then we need to move her." "Move her?" "Hyun, she weighs thousands of tons. She's 400 meters long. How do you move something like that?" "I don't know," Hyun admitted. "But I'll figure something out. I have to—" She went back into the cave, and the creature's eye opened immediately, tracking her return. Hyun felt warmth in her chest. The creature had been waiting for her, watching for her to come back. "I'm here," Hyun said. "I told you I'd come back." She spent the next several hours examining the creature more thoroughly. She measured, took samples, recorded data. The creature allowed all of it, patient and trusting. Hyun learned more about its biology in those hours than anyone had learned in weeks of warfare. The species was old. Very old. Hyun found evidence in the cave of nests from previous generations. This creature might be the last of her kind on the planet. The war had probably driven away or killed any others. And now, carrying the next generation inside her, she was fighting desperately to ensure her species survived. "What should I call you?" Hyun asked, sitting near the creature's head. "You need a name." The creature made a sound and the air vibrated with it. Hyun thought of wind moving through mountains. Strong and ancient and impossible to stop. "Beram," she said. "That means wind in my language. Is that okay?" The creature Beram made that pleased rumbling sound again. Hyan smiled. Baram it is. She pulled out her communicator and called Dayun. I need you to contact Commander Yoon. Tell him I need to speak with him immediately. It's urgent. What are you planning? Something crazy, but it might work. 20 minutes later, Hyan was speaking to Commander Yoon through her communicator. She stood outside the cave, looking up at the sky where his ship orbited. Commander, I need time, she said without preamble. More than 24 hours. I need at least a week. Dr. Hyan, the bombardment is scheduled. I can't. She's pregnant, Commander. The creature you want to kill is carrying 3 babies. She was only defending them from what she saw as a threat. She's not a monster. She's a mother. Silence on the line. Then, that doesn't change what happened. Thousands are dead. I know. And I'm not saying that doesn't matter. But she's not evil. She's not trying to conquer anything. She just wants her babies to survive. Hyan took a breath. Give me time to relocate her. There's an uninhabited moon in this system. Similar environment. I can move her there. Move a 400-meter creature to another moon. Do you hear yourself? Yes, and I know it sounds impossible. But so did approaching her, and I did that. Give me a chance, Commander, please. Yoon was quiet for a long moment. I'll give you 48 hours. Not a week. 48 hours to come up with a real plan. If you can't, the bombardment happens. That's the best I can do. Thank you, Hyan said. Thank you. She ended the call and looked back at the cave. Baram was visible in the entrance now, her massive head watching Hyan. Those golden eyes were calm, trusting. We're going to get you out of here, Hyan promised. You and your babies. I don't know how yet, but we will. Hyan sat cross-legged on the cave floor, her portable computer displaying ship specifications and cargo capacities. None of it looked promising. Moving Baram wasn't just difficult. It was nearly impossible. We need something big, she muttered, scrolling through available vessels. Really, really big. Dae-yun entered the cave carrying more supplies. He had grown comfortable coming inside now, though he still kept a respectful distance from Baram. The creature watched him but showed no aggression. She seemed to understand he was with Hyan. I've been asking around, Dae-yun said, calling in favors. There's a colony transport ship 2 systems away. The Goliath. It was built to carry prefabricated buildings and heavy equipment to new settlements. How big is its cargo bay? 500 meters long. 50 meters high. It was designed to haul entire mining complexes. Hyan looked at Baram, 400 meters from head to tail. Maybe 30 meters high at the shoulder. It could work, maybe, if we can get her inside. That's a big if. Dae-yun sat down beside her. The ship's owner is a man named Teeman. We worked together years ago. He owes me for some trouble I helped him out of. But Hyan, this is asking a lot. More than a favor. Moving a creature that killed thousands of soldiers? That's dangerous. Will he do it? I think so. If I ask him directly. But we only have 48 hours now. Getting here, loading, traveling to the moon. It's going to be tight. Then we need to start now. Hyan stood up and walked to Baram's head. The creature's eye opened, watching her. Girl, we're going to move you. Take you somewhere safe. But you're going to have to trust me even more than you already do. Baram made a low sound. Not quite agreement, but not refusal either. Questioning, how did you explain space travel to a creature that had probably never left its planet? How did you ask something wild and ancient to climb into a metal box and let itself be carried through the void? Hyan spent the next hour touching Baram, speaking to her constantly, trying to build more trust. She showed the creature images on her computer screen. Pictures of the moon they were heading to. Green forests. Warm caves. Places to nest safely. Baram watched the images, her head tilting slightly. That intelligent eye fixed on the screen. Was she understanding? Or just humoring the small creature who had treated her wounds? Dae-yun contacted Teeman. The conversation was tense. Hyan listened to Dayan explain the situation, his voice steady despite how crazy it all sounded. There was silence on the other end for a long time. You're asking me to transport the thing that destroyed 3 armies? Timan finally said. I'm asking you to help save a life, Dayan replied. A mother and her children? More silence. Then you saved my life once? I said I'd pay that back someday. I guess this is someday. The Goliath will be there in 30 hours. Thank you, old friend. After the call ended, Dayan looked at Hyan. 30 hours until the ship arrives. Then we have to load her and get to the moon before the bombardment. It's going to be very close. We'll make it work. Hyan turned back to Barum. First, we need to make sure you can move. You're hurt, pregnant. Walking 400 meters to a landing zone is going to be hard for you. She spent the next several hours examining Barum's legs, checking for injuries there. Some cuts, some bruising, but nothing that would prevent walking. The creature was built strong. Those legs could carry her weight even in her current condition. We need to establish better communication, Hyan said to Dayan. I can read her body language pretty well now, but I need to be able to guide her. Tell her where to go. How do you do that with something that doesn't speak? Watch. Hyan stood in front of Barum and made a gesture, sweeping her arm to the left. She walked a few steps in that direction. Barum watched but didn't move. Hyan returned and tried again. Same gesture. Same movement. She did it 10 times. 20 times. On the 25th repetition, Barum shifted slightly to the left. Yes. Hyan praised. Good girl? That's perfect. She spent 2 hours teaching Barum basic directions, left, right, forward, stop. The creature learned faster than Hyan had expected. That intelligence was really showing now. Barum wasn't just following instinct. She was understanding. Commander Yoon called again. Dr. Hyan, I need an update. We have a transport ship coming. The Goliath. It arrives in 28 hours? And you think you can load that creature onto it? Yes, I do. I want to be clear about something, Yoon said, his voice serious. I'm getting pressure from above. A lot of pressure. The Galactic Council wants this handled. If anything goes wrong, if that creature escapes or causes more damage, they'll hold me responsible. Nothing will go wrong. You can't promise that. No, Hyan admitted. I can't. But I can promise I'll do everything in my power to make this work. That creature killed thousands of people. I know that. I understand the weight of that. But she was defending her children. Doesn't that matter at all? Yoon was quiet for a moment. It matters, he said finally. I have a daughter. She's grown now, in the military herself. But I remember when she was small. The things I would have done to protect her. The lengths I would have gone to. He paused. 48 hours, Dr. Hyan, not a minute more. Understood. Night fell on Velcor Prime. Hyan sat with her back against Barum's side. Feeling the creature's breathing, slow, steady, peaceful, this magnificent being trusted her completely now. I won't let you down, Hyan whispered. I promise. She must have fallen asleep because she woke to Dayan shaking her shoulder. Hyan, the Goliath is here, early. Timan pushed his engines hard. Hyan stood up quickly, her heart racing. Where's the landing zone? 3 kilometers from here, north. It's the closest flat area that can handle a ship that size. 3 kilometers. Hyan looked at Barum. We need to walk her there. She's pregnant and wounded. Can she make it? She has to... Hyan approached Barum, who woke immediately at her presence. Girl, we need to go now. We're going to walk. I'll guide you. Trust me. Barum stood up slowly. The cave shook with the movement. She was huge. Absolutely huge. Hanya had gotten used to her size in the confined space, but now, watching her stand at full height, the reality hit again. Come on, Hyan said, making the forward gesture she had taught. This way. Barum followed. They emerged from the cave into the dawn light. The walk was slow. Barum moved carefully, protecting her wounded side and her swollen abdomen. Hyan walked ahead, constantly looking back, guiding her forward. Dayan went ahead to the landing zone to prepare. Hyan and Barum followed at their own pace. Every step was progress. Every meter was closer to safety. It took 3 hours to cover 3 kilometers. By the time they reached the landing zone, Hyan was exhausted. But Barum was there. Standing at the edge of the massive ship's cargo bay, the Goliath was even bigger than Hyan had imagined. Its cargo bay doors were open, showing a space vast enough to hold a small town. Timon stood at the entrance, staring at Barum with wide eyes. "That's the biggest living thing I've ever seen," he said quietly. "She needs to go inside," Hyan said. "Can your ship handle her weight?" The bay was built for mining equipment. Heavy stuff. She should be fine. Should be. I've never transported something alive before. First time for everything. The hard part came next. Getting Barum to enter the ship. The creature stood at the entrance, looking at the metal walls and artificial lights. Everything in her instincts probably said this was wrong. This was a trap. Hyan walked into the cargo bay. "Come on, girl. It's safe. I promise it's safe." Barum didn't move. Hyan gestured, made encouraging sounds. Nothing worked. The creature trusted her, but this was too much. Too strange. Too wrong. "We're running out of time," Dae-Yun said quietly. "Commander Yoon just called. The bombardment has been moved up. Technical reasons. We have 16 hours now instead of 20. Hyan felt panic rising but pushed it down. She walked back to Barum and placed her hand on the creature's snout. "I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But your babies need this. They need to be somewhere safe." Barum's eye focused on her. That intelligent, aware eye. Hyan showed her the images again on her computer. The moon, the forest, safety. This will take you there. This ship, but you have to come inside. She walked into the cargo bay again, turned, waited. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, Barum took one step forward. Then another. Her massive body entered the cargo bay, filling the space. The ship creaked under her weight but held. "Yes!" Hyan shouted. "Good girl? That's perfect." Timon immediately started closing the cargo bay doors. "We need to leave now." "Right now?" "The window is getting tight." "Wait," Hyan said. "I'm going with her." "Hyan, no," Dae-Yun protested. "It's too dangerous. What if she panics during flight? Then she need me there to calm her." "I'm going." Dae-Yun looked at her, seeing the determination in her face. He sighed. "And I'm coming too." They climbed into the cargo bay as the doors sealed shut. Barum made a distressed sound, seeing the walls close around her. "It's okay," Hyan said, standing near her head. "I'm right here. You're not alone." The ship's engines powered up. The whole vessel shook. Barum's stress level spiked according to Hyan's scanner. The creature looked around wildly. "Easy, girl," Hyan said, placing both hands on Barum's head. "Easy, I know this is frightening. But it'll be over soon? I promise." The Goliath shuddered as it pushed through Velker Prime's upper atmosphere. In the cargo bay, Barum's entire body was tense, her claws digging grooves into the metal floor. Hyan kept her hands on the creature's head, maintaining constant contact. "You're doing so well," she said softly. "So brave. It's going to be okay." Timon's voice came through the intercom. "We've cleared the atmosphere. Setting course for the moon? Travel time, 4 hours at maximum speed." 4 hours. Hyan checked her communicator. They had 14 hours before the bombardment. Plenty of time. Unless something went wrong, Dae-Yun sat nearby, watching Barum with concern. "Her heart rate is really high." "I know." "She's terrified." Hyan moved closer to Barum's head, looking directly into that golden eye. "But she's holding it together. Aren't you, girl? You're being so strong." The ship's artificial gravity kicked in, stabilizing the flight. Barum shifted slightly, feeling the change. Her stress levels dropped a bit as the sensation of falling stopped. "That's better, isn't it?" Hyan said. "Not so bad now." She spent the next hour sitting with Barum, one hand always touching the creature. Physical contact seemed to help. It reminded Bahram that Heian was there, that she wasn't alone in this strange metal place. Daeyeon pulled up data about the moon on his portable screen. It's called Velker Minor, never been colonized. Rich ecosystem though. Forests, caves, plenty of prey animals. The temperature is a bit warmer than the planet, but should be suitable. Any other predators? Nothing in Bahram's size class? She be the apex predator there. Her and her babies. Heian smiled at that thought. 3 young ones growing up on a moon where they could live without fear of wars and bombs. A safe place to raise a family. 2 hours into the flight, something changed. Bahram made a sharp sound of distress. Her body tensed differently. Heian immediately pulled out her medical scanner. No, she whispered. Not now. Please not now. What's wrong? Daeyeon asked. She's going into labor. What? But I thought she had weeks left. The stress must have triggered it. Moving her, the fear, the ship. It's all too much. Heian's hands were already moving, pulling out supplies. We need to help her deliver. Right here. Right now. Daeyeon stared at her. You've done this before, right? Help something this big give birth? Not this big, no. But the principles are the same. Heian hoped that was true. She hoped desperately that was true. Bahram's distress sounds grew louder. The contractions were starting. Heian positioned herself near Bahram's abdomen, her scanner showing the baby's positions. They were moving, getting ready to be born. Daeyeon, I need you to monitor her vital signs. Tell me immediately if anything looks wrong. Heart rate, blood pressure, stress hormones. Got it. The next hour was the longest of Heian's life. Bahram was in pain, making sounds that tore at Heian's heart. But she couldn't stop it. Couldn't make it easier. All she could do was guide the process and pray nothing went wrong. The first baby emerged. It was huge, maybe 10 meters long, covered in wet scales that would harden once exposed to air. It wasn't moving. No, Heian said, rushing to it. She cleared the membranes from its nose and mouth. Checked for breathing, nothing. Come on, come on! She pressed on its chest, trying to stimulate breathing the way she would with any newborn animal. Once, twice, 3 times. The baby's mouth opened, and it took a gasping breath. Then another. Its eyes opened, smaller versions of Bahram's golden stare. Yes. Heian laughed through tears. That's it, breathe. Bahram made a sound, reaching her head around to see her first child. The baby made a high-pitched chirp, and Bahram responded with a deep, gentle rumble. The second baby came 20 minutes later. This one was stronger, moving immediately, calling for its mother. Bahram nuzzled it gently despite her own pain. The third baby took longer. Heian was getting worried when it finally emerged. It was smaller than the others, and it wasn't breathing at all. Daeyeon, help me! Heian shouted. They worked together, clearing airways, stimulating the chest, doing everything they could. Minutes passed. The baby wasn't responding. Heian, I think ... Daeyeon started. No, not giving up yet. She pressed harder on the baby's chest. You're going to breathe. You're going to live. Your mother fought so hard for you. Breathe. 1 more press. 2 more. Then finally a tiny gasp. The smallest baby opened its eyes and made a weak sound. Heian collapsed back, exhausted and relieved. All 3. All 3 are alive. Bahram was making sounds Heian had never heard before. Soft, gentle, full of what could only be love. She was carefully moving her babies closer to her, keeping them warm and protected. Timon's voice came through the intercom. Everything okay back there? I'm hearing some very concerning noises. Everything's fine, Heian called out. Better than fine. We have 3 new passengers. 3 what? Baby giant apex predators? Don't worry about it. I feel like I should worry about it. Daeyeon checked his communicator. We're approaching the moon. Landing in 30 minutes. Heian examined each baby carefully, making sure they were all healthy. Strong heartbeats. Good respiration. They were going to be fine. Against all odds, they were all going to be fine. The Goliath descended toward Velkor Minor through the cargo bay windows. Hyan could see a beautiful world. Green forests, blue water, mountains in the distance. It looked perfect. Scanning for a good landing zone, Teeman announced. There's a valley with cave systems nearby. Plenty of cover. Water source. Lots of animal life showing on sensors. That sounds ideal, Hyan said. The ship landed gently. Teeman opened the cargo bay doors and fresh air rushed in. Baram lifted her head, smelling the new environment. The babies chirped, responding to the change. This is home now, Hyan said. For you and your children, safe, peaceful, no more war. Baram stood slowly, carefully, her baby staying close to her legs. She moved to the cargo bay doors and looked out at the forest beyond. Her body language changed. The tension left. She was reading this place as Safe. Hyan walked beside her as Baram stepped out onto Velkor Minor's soil. The creature took a few steps, then stopped. She turned her massive head to look back at Hyan. For a long moment they stared at each other. Human and creature. So different. So possibly different. But connected now by trust and understanding, Baram made a deep sound and lowered her head. Gently, carefully, she touched her snout to Hyan's chest. Hyan felt the warmth of it, the weight. It was a gesture of thanks, of acknowledgement, of goodbye. Be safe, Hyan whispered, placing both hands on Baram's head. Take care of your babies. Live a long, peaceful life. Baram pulled back and called to her children. The 3 babies followed as she walked into the forest. Hyan watched them go, getting smaller among the trees. A family, safe at last. Daeyeon stood beside her. You did it. You actually did it. We did it. All of us. Hyan wiped tears from her eyes. Come on. We need to leave before Commander Yoon changes his mind about the bombardment. They climbed back into the Goliath. Teeman lifted off, heading back to orbit. Behind them, Velkor Prime hung in space, soon to be destroyed. But here, on this small moon, life would continue. Commander Yoon was waiting on a communication channel. Dr. Hyan, I saw your report. 3 healthy offspring. That's remarkable. She's a good mother. I'm ordering the moon designated as a protected xenobiological preserve. No mining, no colonization, no military activity. The Galactic Council has agreed. That creature and her children will be left alone. Thank you, Commander. No, thank you. You showed us something important today. We thought the only solution was destruction. You proved there was another way. He paused. The bombardment of Velkor Prime begins in 2 hours. I'm sorry we couldn't save the planet too. We saved what mattered most, Hyan said. A mother and her children. That's enough. The connection ended. Hyan sat in the passenger section of the ship, utterly exhausted. Daeyeon sat beside her. What are you going to do now? He asked. Write a report. A detailed one. About Baram and her species. About what I learned. Maybe it'll help prevent something like this in the future. You think people will listen? Some will. Maybe not everyone. But some. She looked at him. What happened here? It didn't have to happen. If anyone had bothered to study the planet's ecosystem before starting a war, if anyone had tried to understand the native species, but everyone was too busy fighting to look. That's war. It makes people stupid. Then we need smarter people making decisions about war. 6 months later, Hyan sat in her office watching footage from monitoring satellites positioned around Velkor Minor. The images showed Baram and her 3 offspring, now much larger, moving through the forest. They were hunting together, learning, playing, thriving. The Galactic Council had published her report widely. It had started conversations about planetary protection, about studying ecosystems before colonizing, about respecting native life. Not everyone agreed with her conclusions. Many still saw Baram as a monster that had killed thousands. The families of the dead soldiers were angry that the creature lived, while their loved ones were gone. Hyan understood their anger. She carried the weight of those deaths too. Every person Baram had killed to protect her unborn children. There were no easy answers. No simple right and wrong,